We see it throughout the summer where people do countdowns on social media, and when it's 98 and 79 and 57, it doesn't really connect. But I think we're at the point where the days matter and the countdown feels real. We're getting to that point. Under 3 weeks at this point, 17 and counting. Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Huddle, and of course, is multi times per week podcast, Buckeye Weekly. Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts 247 Sports, joining us to talk Buckeyes for 172nd consecutive week. We want to remind everyone that we don't want you to duck out on us here necessarily. Maybe Tony does. I split allegiances here for the next hour, but there's a stream that we're going to drop the link to in the live chat with Kevin and Tony and all sorts of good people over there on Buckeye Huddle going for a number of hours throughout the day talking Ohio State football. But we'll do just that for the next 60 minutes here. Leave those comments and questions, and we will get to them. Unfortunately, Steve, we start with Evan Pryor. A lot of folks looking forward to seeing him explode on the scene, make an impact in the running game, see him burst for some big gainers because maybe he provides an element that even Travion Henderson doesn't. Good pass catcher out of the backfield, all of that. But unfortunately, a knee injury may cost him the season.
Yeah, that's what it seems to be. Ryan Day still has not confirmed all of that, but that seems to be what everybody close to the program seems to be saying, that he'll be out for the season with an injury. And very unfortunate. Obviously, he was probably bracketed, I would say, with Mayan Williams or, perhaps the number 3 running back on the team. So as of right now, they're down to 3 scholarship running backs. Obviously, they've got Chip Trayanum, who transferred over from Arizona State, played running back there, and is one of the backup linebackers right now. They've also got Steele Chambers, who was a backup running back and is now a starting linebacker for the Buckeyes. So they've got some other options, obviously, but it's going to put a lot on Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams to fill those roles. And the true freshman Dallin Hayden is going to have to step up as well and play probably some meaningful snaps as well. I mean, you think about last year, Henderson, he had some games where he was kind of in and out of the lineup, would go off for a quarter to get treatment or whatever. And they really did need Mayan Williams and Master Teague to kind of get through the season last year. And you just wonder, who would be that number 3 guy right now, Dallin Hayden potentially, or a walk-on, or, do they move Chip Trayanum back over there or have him rep a couple days over there just in case. But as of right now, it seems like Tony Alford's going to go with the status quo, which is just the 3 scholarship running backs.
Yeah, that's the big question, is what do they do at that number 4 spot, as the question comes in there from Ed Rogers. And if you look at what and I mentioned this on Buckeye Weekly yesterday, if you look at what the running back carries beyond the top 3 have been under Ryan Day, it's about 28 carries a year. So that's what you're looking to replace, as long as everybody stays healthy. You're looking who can take care of those 28 carries per year that goes to the 4th or the 5th string running back. And that may just mean more carries for Dallin Hayden, because Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson are going to get the bulk of the carries, and then Dallin Hayden can clean the rest up. You've got walk-on Caden Saunders in his second year. You've got a walk-on true freshman in T.C. Caffey, who was an All-Ohio running back last year. Those are 2 options. Then if they want to, if somebody gets hurt, I wonder if they move Xavier Johnson to running back. He's played running back before. He's wide receiver now. 5th-year guy, has played the position. Could be your number 4, could be your number 3 if somebody goes down. I think given what the position has demanded, that 4th running back has demanded over the years, I think, as Steve said, I think they're okay with status quo. I just wonder if they start to prepare for non-status quo already, or do they wait? I think with a guy like Xavier Johnson, you can wait because he's a veteran. He's done it all. he could probably pick things up pretty quickly. So I don't think you need to do anything right now per se. Certainly don't need to train him right now, who is still entrenched at running back or linebacker, trying to move his way into a rotation or into some playing time. Now would be a bad time to move him, I think. So you go with what you got. It's not like I don't think a third running back was going to be playing much against Notre Dame anyway. So you've got some time at least.
When you bring up this 28 carry per average for a 4-string running back under Ryan Day, and that seems, we've all seen it in the past from a number of programs where that guy might be a program guy, a senior who's been around, people love him, he's just a worker, he's on special teams, and now he gets to carry it 5 times against Arkansas State or somebody of that ilk. But you just mentioned a string of guys that are just beginning their careers, and that senior that's stuck around for 4 or 5 years, it doesn't exist necessarily in this program, and it's pretty sparse across the country in terms of the big teams. And you see more of this. So in a sense, on the surface, this seems like big deal. Carry it 3 to 5 times against the worst teams in the Big Ten or in Arkansas State, fill in the blank. But you're obviously looking at the potential of another injury. We don't want to think about that. We're also looking at somebody trying to make a splash and prove something who's just at the outset of their career.
Yeah, thinking back in Jim Tressel's time when they would have 5 walk-on running backs who would get carries during a season. And it's just, it's not that way anymore. Now they've got running backs who can do it. But like you said, the 5th-year guy, the program guy, he's either never been to Ohio State or certainly not going to last, because those guys almost aren't recruited anymore, especially at the skill positions.
Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead,
Can you hear me?
Yep. We got you.
Okay. I don't know if I had a blip there for a second, but I think that you hope it never comes to this, and you hope nothing happens to Henderson and nothing happens to Mayan Williams, because those 2 guys, tremendously talented to start with. Dallin Hayden, it was said, played pretty well in the scrimmage as well on Saturday. So, man, I'm struggling. Guess we'll have to wait and see how it all shakes out. But hopefully they can get through the season with those 3 guys and fill in around the cracks with some of those walk-ons that Tony brought up.
Pete mentioned Steele Chambers. Now, I'm not suggesting that Steele Chambers jump to the other side of the line of scrimmage again and do that. But we just haven't talked much about Steele Chambers maybe at all for the last several weeks. And I'm just curious as to whether there's a thought that here's a guy that did a pretty remarkable job, formidable job at linebacker after, of course, switching over. And we know that he had a background at linebacker in high school, but still, for him to make that switch on the Big Ten level and be as productive as he was, whether there could be even more growth compared to other guys because of him showing what he did last year and now having another full off season, whether Steele Chambers really makes an impact.
Well, Jim Knowles said last week that Steele Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg have taken over that linebacker position and taken over that linebacker room. They are the top 2 guys. And one of the things that he stressed about Steele Chambers was just the confidence he has. He has more confidence than any of the other Will linebackers. Now you look at the Will linebackers and you're talking about CJ Hicks, a true freshman, Chip Trainum playing his first stint at linebacker. So he should have more confidence than those guys, but he has emerged as a leader. And when you talk to him, and Steve, I think you've talked to him plenty, he's a happy-go-lucky guy. He cusses more than any player that I've ever interviewed, and not in a bad way, but just in a casual way. And he'll just throw it out there. He's very comfortable in his own skin, both outside of football and now maybe more importantly, inside of football as a linebacker. He's a linebacker now for, 13 months, and he fully sees himself as a linebacker now, putting on more weight. And I'm really excited to see what he does in Jim Knowles' defense, because linebackers get after it for Jim Knowles.
Yeah, the reaction coming out of the scrimmage was that he played pretty well, and that he and Tommy Eichenberg have, nailed down the linebacker spots pretty much. So I don't think they're going to rob Peter to pay Paul in this instance, unless a game was on the line and they turned to him and said, it's 4 minutes to go, we're out of running backs. We don't want CJ Stroud to keep it. We want, we've got to do something. But again, there'd be a lot of bad injuries that would have to happen before I think you would see him move over there and have any appreciable number of snaps in a game. But I wouldn't rule it entirely out of the realm of possibility at this point.
Maybe they just line up and say, we're going 5 wide every play and throwing 70 passes a game, no runs. Try to stop.
Don't threaten Ryan Day with a good time, But hey, Steele Chambers career 8-yard per carry average. But I think they like their short passing game as well, and the RPO stuff they consider part of the run game. They'll make it work, and I'm interested to see what they do with the plans that they had for Evan Pryor. Where do those plans go now? How much of it goes to Travion Henderson? How much of it goes to Mayan Williams? They wanted him in the passing game. Who does that go to now? We saw Jackson Smith and Jigba in the backfield in the Rose Bowl. We saw like Devontae Smith coming out of the backfield and for Alabama. Do they do some of things like that now to incorporate those plays, but with new players? And how do they fill that void? Running the ball, they'll be fine. But all of the other stuff that they wanted to do with Evan Pryor that they had plans for, where do those plans go now?
Before we get to another topic here, you guys talked to the defensive line on Tuesday. The Rod Farva chiming in with a question about impact freshmen. So if you could target one guy and say he's going to make the biggest splash this year.
That's a tough one. They have that black stripe ritual, as everybody knows, that once the players have proven themselves as freshmen, and even the transfers, Chip Trianum and Tanner McAllister went through this and had to wear the black stripe on their helmet till they proved themselves as true Buckeyes or full-fledged team members or whatever. Some of the freshmen that have already had that are C.J. Hicks, the linebacker, Jair Brown, outstanding cornerback who could be maybe pushed up as high as the 2 deep, depending on what's up with Jordan Hancock right now in his injury situation. So there's a couple of them there. I always thought maybe Hero Canoe could get a look at defensive tackle just because they're a little thin there. But, I don't look for a lot of offense, or rather I don't look for a lot of true freshmen to be heavily involved. This is a veteran, experienced, talented team, and there really isn't a need for freshmen to come in. I spoke to somebody who was with the 2002 national championship team recently, and one of the things he brought up was one of the reasons why that team was so battle tested and so good was because the class in 2002, the recruiting class, was ranked number 2 in the nation, and they had a who's who of guys, at every position that came in. Maurice Clarett obviously played as a true freshman, but you had a lot of young guys, Santonio Holmes, Troy Smith, Quinn Pitcock, some offensive linemen, Mike DeAndrea, all kinds of guys side to side, backwards and forwards, who were on the scout team and gave them great looks and helped prepare them. So that may be where the freshmen on this year's team, I know it's not a glamorous thing, and I know you're not going to see them pop up on your TV on Big Ten Network, in the Toledo game, or I guess that's Fox for the Toledo game, but Big Ten Network for the Arkansas State game with 4 minutes to go. Maybe you won't see all these guys pop up. Maybe you will, because they can play up to 4 games. But, I don't look that you're going to have more than 1 or 2 true freshmen play heavy, big-time roles on this team.
Yeah, it's asking a lot, asking too much. I think I would probably point to Dallin Hayden and Jair Brown just because of injuries right now. Hayden is the number 3 guy, so he's going to be getting some carries, and he will be playing some. Jair Brown, like right now at corner, they've got a bunch of dings now. None of it seems to be long-term, but, Jordan Hancock has been held out. Cameron Brown is on a snap count. Ryan Turner, the freshman corner, has been banged up. They moved Jansen Dunn to corner for a little bit. He got banged up. So, like, Jair Brown is moving up the depth chart as everybody else is moving down, but he's also playing well to do it. So he's a guy that I think, by Notre Dame, he may be the number 3 guy just because of attrition. Who knows at this point, which is kind of scary. But he's stepped up to the challenge and has continued to do so. So I think I'd probably pick those 2 guys, not expecting either of them to really have a huge impact this year, but based on depth and injuries, maybe larger than anticipated initially.
Billy Tuesday is hoping for some good leads on the recruiting trail on the defensive side of the ball.
You're muted, Steve.
I was muted. I apologize. They got Jaden Bonsu, the safety from New Jersey, picked Ohio State over Michigan State and Miami of Florida here this past week. So that was a good spot. Obviously, they're going to play 3 safeties on defense quite a bit, so you've got to really fortify that position. So that was a good one there. Beyond that, they are working as hard as they can to get as many great players as they can get on the defensive side of the football. They know they've got to continue to build up on that side of the ball. There is a defensive tackle, another one, a defensive lineman who is also committing. I'm going to look up his name on my phone here real quick later this month. The name escapes me just at the second, but he is a scheduled commitment, I think, for the 28th to the 29th of this month. And he is a guy, let's see. Well, Jalen Thompson is going to make an announcement, but it's believed he's from Cass Tech in Michigan, and most signs are pointing toward Michigan State with him. He's going to announce on the 22nd. The guy that I'm talking about is Desmond Ume Ozulu from Maryland, and he's ranked as the number 168 player in the country. And Ohio State's got some crystal ball predictions for him. Going to commit on August the 29th. North Carolina, South Carolina, Pittsburgh, Boston College, all in on him. And again, he's an edge player, another edge player, 6'6", 240. But, again, can't have enough big guys who can run and make plays, and sounds like he'd be in that category.
For the Notre Dame game, they're trying to get a visit from Keon Keeley, who is committed to Notre Dame, 5-star defensive end. I think a lot of people are looking at him to flip somewhere, be it Alabama, Ohio State, somewhere. Like I don't know if people are expecting him to stay with Notre Dame now.
They're doing Notre Dame a favor, Tony. He wants to come in and watch his team play. I mean, I've always wondered about that, if there was a coach's gentleman's agreement to invite each other's recruits to some of these games. But, for them to invite a Notre Dame commitment to come and watch them play Notre Dame, that's pretty heady stuff right there.
Another 5-star defensive end, Damon Wilson, visiting for that weekend. That's the plan now as well. He is out of Venice, Florida, the number 5 edge in the 24/7 composite, number 32 player overall, and obviously offers from all of the SEC and everybody you would expect. 6'4", 230, kind of a speed guy, if you will. So those are a couple of names just for this upcoming, for the first fall batch of official visits for the 2023 class.
Talking Buckeyes with all of you each and every Wednesday at 1:30 Eastern. Steve Hellwagon's here from Bucknuts 247 Sports. We appreciate Steve posting these podcasts to 247 on Bucknuts. Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Huddle, and his podcast Buckeye Weekly. As soon as we get done here, I will drop it in the stream. I already have in the chat, and we'll do it again. There's a link to Buckeye Huddle where they're going live for who knows how long. So as soon as we get done here, jump on over there, check out some more Ohio State talk. What have you guys been mixing it up on, Tony?
Obviously previewing the team, a lot of Notre Dame talk. You might be surprised to find out. Obviously the Evan Pryor stuff, concerns about the offensive line, wondering about Jim Knowles' defense. Same stuff we do here every week, but started at 10 in the morning, and we're going to go until, until there's nobody left in the chat asking questions. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we'll see. I don't know if we'll go that long, but it's been a good time for sure.
Steve, according to Ferris here in the chat, the team with the third best yards per carry in the nation is in search of a running game.
Yeah, he made a comment there you put up there a second ago about do they even need a running game? And Henderson didn't have any 100-yard games last year. I think he had one close to 300 yards in one of the outings. So I don't know. Yeah, that was the comment. Yeah, you didn't run it very effectively against Oregon or Michigan, and lo and behold, you lost both those games. I know there were other mitigating factors on the defense as well, but yeah, I think you got to be able to do both in the Big Ten, particularly when the weather's bad. And not only that, if you're running the ball on first down and you get it to 2nd and 2, now you can do anything in the playbook, and that just really changes things. You wear down a defense by running at them play after play after play, and then that's when you can take your deep shots when they're worn out and those kind of things. So it's a 60-minute battle of attrition. And people just think it's a video game, and it's really not. These are actual human beings out there in those helmets and shoulder pads out there playing, and they wear down. It's kind of a crazy phenomenon, but if you lean on somebody for 3 quarters, they're gonna have a hard time answering the bell in the 4th quarter. So you need to be able to do both if you want to really be as successful as you can possibly be coming out of the Big Ten.
I do think they need to be more forceful with the run. And the one thing Ryan Day always talks about is that the RPO that they do, they consider that all running, even though it ends up in a pass play, depending on what the defense does. So, it ends up a 17-yard gain to Jackson Smith and Jigba over the middle. They consider, they chalk that up to the run total or whatever in their minds. And so we don't, when we look at the stats and we see Ohio State rushing for 90 yards against Nebraska, or only 166 against Maryland, but there may be 50 other yards that they would consider part of that running game. But I do still think you need to be able to get the 3rd and 2 that you shouldn't have to pass on all the short yardage stuff. And until you are able to pick that up consistently, you're going to have questions about the running game. And you can run away from it by throwing on those short yardages, but eventually it catches up with you. And I'd say it caught up with them immediately against Oregon. They missed on a lot of their short yardage stuff. Catches up with them against Michigan as well when they couldn't run the ball, and keeps them in the game close against Nebraska when they couldn't run the ball. So, yeah, I think you now have the offensive line. Ryan Day wants guards at guards. He prefers guards at guards. So now you've got him. Let's see what happens. You've got a quarterback that everybody fears, so you can't just sell out to stop the run. So you've got some advantages all over the field, and we criticized the running game here a little bit, or talk about the flaws, but they were 3rd in the nation in yards per carry, as you said. What Luke Whippler said a week or so ago about that, about the criticism, he's like, people will you do 99 things right, you do the 100th thing wrong, and people will just criticize you about the one thing you've done wrong, and they ignore everything else that you've done. And I think there is some of that. But when that one thing you do wrong is Michigan, you're going to get some blowback.
Yeah, you make a tremendous point there. This came up in I did a chat on Monday, and it kind of came up there. Like if the defense played great on Saturday in the scrimmage, which a lot of people think they played very well, what does that say about the offense? Are they going to be as good or whatever? And it's like, every positive raises a conversely negative question, it seems, with Ohio State football. So that 99-1 analogy is perfect, because the Ohio State fans are very vigilant. They watch this thing like a hawk, and they expect excellence. And if there is a perceived shortcoming, they're gonna ask about it, and they're true to form on that. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. But I think as I said, you got to be proficient. When you want to run the ball, when you need to run the ball, when it's 5 minutes to go in the game and you need 2 first downs, and you don't want to throw the ball because it could get picked off or could go incomplete and stop the clock. You need to be able to run the football. And Ohio State last year in some situations wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, with such a 4th down or 4 down mentality out of most offenses these days, to Tony's point, 3rd and 2, you shouldn't automatically be throwing the ball. For as old and outdated, and we like to make fun of the old Woody Hayes adage, there is a slice of truth to it still. There are bad things that can happen when you throw the ball. There has to be more coordination and success between offensive line, quarterback, and receiver, as opposed to just saying, here, big guy, go get us 2 yards behind these 5 behemoths that should be able to push the other guys, because that's why we recruited them. So you got to be able to do that. And it's still a physical game, regardless of rules changes and offensive approach changes that have altered the game. It's still a physical game, and the team that imposes its will is usually the better team and the team that's going to win. Travion, 17 for 74 against Michigan with a 28-yarder.
Not good enough.
18
Didn't get much done,
I think, against Oregon, something like that.
12 for 50 something.
I think they only netted 150 or 120 yards rushing against Oregon. They threw for over 400 or close to 500, maybe. I don't know.
All right. We got Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Huddle. Catch him on his podcast as well a number of times per week. Buckeye Weekly, Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts, 247. Defensive line. Is there anything we know that we didn't know before you guys got a chance to hear from Larry Johnson and the guys along the defensive front, other than that it seems like they're going to rotate a ton of guys in there?
Go ahead, Steve.
Sounds like they've got as many as 14 guys between the 4 positions that are going to play. I can't sit here and positively tick them all off for you, but I can take a pretty good guess that it's Zach Harrison and JT Tuamaloau and Jack Sawyer for sure at defensive end, with Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Tyler Friday in the mix as well. So there's 5 defensive ends for certain who are going to play. I don't know if I'm missing somebody out of that group or not. They've got some young guys. They got Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson and Amori Abor, a freshman. Those 3 guys are freshmen. I'm not sure if I'm missing somebody out of that defensive line group or not, but
no, they're good. They're good.
Those first 5 are going to play, and maybe one of those freshmen as well. And then defensive tackle, seems to me Teron Vincent is at or near the top of the list. Tyleek Williams is up there. Let's see. Jaden McKenzie potentially. Mike Hall would be in there. There's 4. I'm missing a couple, I'm sure, but
Jerron Cage and Ty Hamilton.
Jerron Cage and Ty Hamilton, they're at or near the top as well. So yeah, that's 6 pretty good defensive tackles they've got. So that's 6 and 5. That's 11 of the alleged 14. I don't know about Caden Curry at defensive end, if he's ready to go or not, but or Hero Canoe, a true freshman as well, so a defensive tackle. But that's I guess those guys have been doing a really good job. But I think the physicality is what was missing up front. Just not able to hold the point of attack when Oregon and Michigan were really pushing the issue there last year at times. And that's what needed to be improved. And obviously, with Jim Knowles calling the defense now, we'll see how that all looks like here. Beginning September 3rd against Notre Dame.
And coming into camp, when you look at those 4 sophomore defensive linemen, everybody's talking about Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, and Tyleek Williams. now in camp, everybody on the team is talking about Mike Hall, and he has really stepped up as one of those 3 nose tackles. I think they're going to play 10. They're going to rotate 10 guys, and Mike Hall can play either defensive tackle spot, which is good because you have Jerron Cage and you have Ty Hamilton there at nose tackle as well. They're experienced, but everybody loves Mike Hall's athleticism. Larry Johnson said he's quick like BB Landers was, and BB Landers was very quick but small. Mike Hall is quick and big, around 6'3", 6'4", 300 pounds, and can rush the passer. Now, Tyleik Williams was a great pass rusher last year. They need him to be a better run stopper. They need Mike Hall to be a better run stopper. So that's really the question is all of these interior guys. Tron Vincent early in his career was a better pass rusher than run stopper. You've got these guys. Can they contain the run? Can they make that middle impassable? Jerron Cage, 6th year, been around forever. Not the most talented guy, but is stout and won't make plays. But I don't know that you necessarily need him to. You just need him to occupy blockers and allow your linebackers to be free. And so interior wise, they like what they've got. They've got 5 good ones that they trust. They've got 5 defensive ends that they trust. The question then is, can any of these young guys move into that rotation? And I don't know if there's going to be enough opportunities in a Notre Dame game or a game that isn't out of reach. Larry Johnson said when he's lucky, he'll be able to rotate 12. Being lucky to me means like when you're up by 4 touchdowns, I'll bring in some of the freshmen because he's a guy that has always wanted to put his freshmen in a position to succeed, meaning an advantageous position, not a position where, okay, Caden Curry, you're out there on 3rd and 7 in the first quarter when Ohio State's down 7-0 to Notre Dame.
I posted Jack Sawyer's interview this morning, and it was interesting as I look back. He had 3 sacks last year, and Tuimoloau had 2.5. And as we all recall, the Bosa brothers became All-Americans in their sophomore season, and these guys were hyped up coming out of high school just as much as those guys were. So can Larry Johnson sprinkle his pixie dust on these guys and make one of them an All-American and the other one an All-Big Ten guy this year? I guess we'll find out. But they both look the part. Jack Sawyer is up from 250 pounds when he arrived at Ohio State in January of 2021 to about 265 right now, whereas JT Tuimoloau did not work out at his college of choice, which turned out to be Ohio State last summer. Didn't commit till July 4th, didn't arrive till the end of July. And he arrived around 274, and he is now lean, mean, fighting machine, about 265, where he feels he wants to be and where they want him to be. So hopefully you're going to see a lot of great athletic plays out of those guys in particular. And Zach Harrison, I mean, kind of a forgotten Buckeye in some regards. There was a lot of hype for him last year. I don't recall his numbers offhand, maybe 5 or 6 sacks. I don't know. He had that big play in the first game where he stripped the quarterback, Tanner Morgan, and then was it Haskell Garrett picked it up and ran it in? Is that how that went? Or yeah, I believe it was. And that really turned that game. And that was the problem as this team went through the seasons. The defense as a whole just didn't make those kind of game-changing plays and get those turnovers or even those negative plays to put a team behind and down in distance. And it's not so much getting a 3 and out. It's don't let them pick up 40 yards before they punt it, that type of thing. I mean, because that flips the field position, and it's just easier when you get those 3 and outs and those negative plays and those turnovers deep in the wrong territory. You can jump on a team and put them away instead of relying on CJ Stroud to drive 80 yards, 7 consecutive possessions, which he's not above doing that. If he has to do it, he'll do it. But, it just makes it a lot simpler if you don't have to do it that way.
I think at one point last year, was it like 19 straight touchdown drives with CJ Stroud at quarterback? Like Jerry Emmett gave us that stat at one point.
Yeah, taken away where they had to kneel down at the end of a half or something like that, taking those possessions out, or they ran out of time or weren't trying to force the issue at the end of a half. Yeah, it was an obscene number of of nobody was more efficient offensively, obviously, than Ohio State last year. Number one in points and number one in yards. And, we'll see if they can live up to anything close to that this year without Wilson and Olave in the mix.
Playing off of D-Rock Irish's comment right there, I can't flip anywhere on social media where I'm not met with a response from one way or the other on Paul Feinbaum. I did not hear it. I guess I saw the quote verbatim, basically saying that Notre Dame being ranked in the top 10 in the country is a joke. They're going to get blown out in week 1. I don't necessarily put those two together. I could cite, and I think we all could cite, a number of teams that were qualified to be in the top 10 that got blown out in week 1. So I don't necessarily put those two together. They did go 11-1 last year, and they've routinely finished in the top 10 or 15 in the country under Brian Kelly. Still, 1-6 against top 5 teams under Brian Kelly. The one win, I believe, was against a team that didn't have its starting quarterback, who was a number 1 draft pick in the NFL, and 3 starters on defense on the road for Clemson. So that was a bit of a tarnished win, the one against the top 5. So there's no question that this program has struggled, whether that's Willingham, Davey, Weiss, Kelly on the sideline against elite competition going on 30 years now. Now they head to the shoe, Steve.
Yeah, what I don't like is new head coach, although I think he'll do a good job there, and new quarterback on the road in the first game. I don't like that for Notre Dame. I just think that's a recipe for disaster, although Lincoln Riley did come into Ohio Stadium 3 or 4 years ago with Oklahoma, although he had Baker Mayfield at quarterback, who had been proven, and they beat the Buckeyes, but and it was only his second game against a coach who had 3 national championships to his credit, Urban Meyer. But Ohio State is catching Notre Dame this year in the right place at Ohio Stadium and at the right time at the beginning of the season, because I do believe Notre Dame can be a top 10 team by the end of the year, end up in the top 10. Do they also play Clemson later on? Does that sound right? So they may end up 10-2, 11-1, depending on how that other game goes. Probably 10-2 if I had to guess. And, still right on the cusp of the top 10, probably in one of the major bowl games. And a successful first year for Marcus Freeman on the whole. I think the flip is true next year because, and again, I can't sit here and quote you exactly, who all Notre Dame would have back next year. Ohio State would be going into South Bend next year. It's not the first game. I think it's the second or the third game of the season next year at South Bend with a new quarterback, although Kyle McCord has at least started one game previously to this year. If he's the guy, or Devin Brown, potentially a guy one way or the other hasn't played a lot of football and, holes at a lot of key positions. I think you're going to lose DeJuan Jones, possibly Matthew Jones, Paris Johnson. I mean, you're going to have to dip into the portal to fill out an offensive line, in my opinion, for Ohio State next year. You would have some guys in their contract year, like Sawyer and Tuiamalaau and Travion Henderson in particular. Those 3 guys are going to need to have a good junior year next year to get where they want to be. But, I think there'll be some holes on this team at Ohio State next year and a lot of youth. This year's game skews toward Ohio State. Next year's game, is probably a pick 'em or whatever, or skews a little bit more toward Notre Dame. But again, they play these games on the field, and maybe this kid from Notre Dame is going to turn out to be, one of their best quarterbacks in their history. We just don't know. I mean, it's so early in the season, so early in the process, you can't really say. But a lot of the variables favor Ohio State. A few of them that don't is Ohio State hasn't done very well at home in these marquee non-conference games. When you think about USC and Virginia Tech and Oklahoma in particular, there's 3 of them right there that they didn't win here in the last 10 or 12 years. They did beat Miami, I think, under Tressel in 2010, but I'm not sure, who else in this last stretch, really stacks up like that non-conference wise. That was a good opponent for them. That they were able to hold serve at home.
Yeah, that game next year is their OSU's third game of the season. So they'll have warm-ups against Youngstown State and Western Kentucky and not necessarily have to show anything, even though their identity will still be pretty well known because of Ryan Day's offense and Jim Knowles' defense. It's, they are what they are, and they're very good. So not a lot of need to hide stuff. But getting that as the third game next year for Kyle McCord or Devin Brown, or maybe Dylan Raiola enrolls a year early, who knows, and wins the job.
He's going the Ewers route, baby.
Too soon.
Get paid.
I think, having that game 3 next year is almost perfect if you're going to have them on the schedule for Ohio State.
Yeah. Willie, I brought this up in our private chat. Willie raised the question earlier, one of the posters, that why would you play Notre Dame? And I think there are a couple of reasons. Gene Smith and his scheduling philosophy, the athletic director, who was a Notre Dame football player, 1,000 years ago. I'm dating Gene now. It was the early 70s. And he was there around the time of Rudy, I believe. He may have been on the team when that whole Rudy thing was going down. He wants them to play a top 10 or top 15 non-conference team every year. He then wants them to play a top 40 caliber team, depending on where it may come from. It could be another Power 5 team, or it could be, American team or Conference USA or whoever. And then he wants that other game to be a mid-American type opponent, that type of opponent. So a high major, a mid-major, a high to mid-major, and then a for lack of a better term, a mid to low major. To put it in basketball terms, I don't want to say that MAC is low major football, but the point I want to make is you do that, one, to get your football team ready for the rigors of the Big Ten. 1, 2, you do it to differentiate yourself from other playoff contenders. If you're able to beat a team like Notre Dame, it puts you into the playoff. Like the year they went to Oklahoma and won, despite losing to Iowa later in the season and not even winning the Big Ten championship, they were branded a playoff team because they'd beaten Oklahoma way back when. You can't put Oklahoma in without putting Ohio State in. So, they got in. So it serves a purpose. And the last thing is it brings value for your television partners. This thing's going to draw, 15 million, 18 million viewers, maybe, depending on how good the game is. And this brings value for your television partners and the TV deal. And ultimately, it's all a television show at this point. It'll mean less. I don't know which way this is going to cut when they go to 8 or 12 teams. Will you want to play more strenuous, rigorous non-conference games? Or will it not matter who you play because the best 8 teams are going to get in regardless of who they do? And one other thing on scheduling, somebody was crapping all over Michigan. I don't know the circumstances that have led them to have to play Hawaii, Connecticut, and Colorado State this year, but people in glass houses cannot throw stones. Ohio State had a contract with a high major fall through a few years ago, and Cincinnati was the best team on their non-conference schedule. Maybe the first or second Fickle year when they beat them 42-0 in Ohio Stadium, probably 17, 18 around then. So, kind of cuts both ways. You got to kind of, be careful be careful where you're throwing your stone, because that one comes back to hit you right upside the head based on 2017 and then, or 2018. And then, you don't make the playoff after, whatever happened later on that season. So there you go.
Tony, this is an opponent in Notre Dame that there are a few teams in the country that are going to challenge Ohio State's manhood as much as I think Notre Dame will on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I think I think we'll find out a lot about Ohio State right away, because it's going to be physical on both sides of the ball, just like the Wisconsin game, like the Michigan game. So they're going to have to be ready right away, and the offensive line has to be as good as they can be, and then deal with whatever comes after them. Defensive line has to be raring to go. I'm looking forward to it because you're exactly right. This is going to be physical. This is where Ohio State has been questioned on both sides of the line, their physicality. Michigan ran over you. You couldn't run the ball when you wanted to against a lot of teams. You're basically you hit home runs and you build up your average that way. But what are you going to do? Like Ryan Day talks about, he wants 3-yard runs to become 5-yard runs. That's what he wants Travion Henderson to do. Turn those short yard runs, get 2 more yards out of them. Keep us ahead of the chains. And that takes toughness because you're getting hit right away. Don't make a 1-yard gain, a 3-yard gain. Make a 3-yard gain, a 5-yard gain, and run through that first tackle, get past it, and then go forward as you're going down. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And the Notre Dame offense, not a ton of skill that you're worried about. Like when your biggest fear is your tight end, is there really all that is there too much to be concerned about? Defensively, I think you just have to expect everybody to be sound. And it's similar to Iowa in that regard, where this is a defense probably not going to make mistakes in terms of Notre Dame, and an offense that will try not to make mistakes. But when you've got a quarterback like Tyler Buckner, who is inexperienced, but he's played, but has he really shined? Has he really been tested? And really, it's interesting because you don't want to make mistakes, but he has to make plays, I think, for you to win, and maybe has to take some chances. That's why I'm wondering how Ohio State approaches him. Do you wait for him to do you just try to contain him, or do you rush him and try to, this is his first big game, do you try to like get him seeing ghosts and hearing feet, or do you let him make mistakes and come to you? Like, do you force the issue, or do you just see if he can do anything to you first off?
If I'm Ryan Day and the coaching staff, I'm having Notre Dame played a game at Soldier Field last year, and they beat Wisconsin 41-13. And that game was a close game at halftime. It spiraled out of control in the second half. Graham Mertz threw 4 interceptions. I think Notre Dame had a kickoff return for a touchdown as well. So there were a lot of variables. They didn't just go in and just beat them up, but they humiliated Wisconsin, last year in Chicago on a neutral field. So they've got players. I mean, they've got people, and this is not going to be a walkover, I don't think, by any means. And honestly, when Ohio State played Notre Dame in 1995, people think, oh, that was a walkover. It really wasn't. Notre Dame was ahead 10-0 to start the game, and then Ohio State had this avalanche of one big play after another, and Notre Dame fumbled a punt, and all these things happened. And Bobby Hoying played great, and Eddie George played great, and Terry Glenn caught the touchdown, the Chariots of Fire play, where you could run it in slow motion and slow it down to frame by frame and just enjoy it as he just caught a short pass and turned it upfield for 1,000,000 yards. But that became an avalanche. So you have to stave off that. I mean, that type of thing. And so to my feeling is they can't go into this feeling they're the number 2 ranked team in the country, and they're already going to Los Angeles to play Alabama for the national championship. There are 14 games that they have to play, and they need to win at least 13 of them to get a chance to maybe probably all 14 to have a chance to play Alabama at the end, if that's who it is. But that's my 2 cents is the spread says one thing, but anything could happen. My feeling is it does end up something like 44-20. That's the score I've just been throwing out there. Goofy score, 44-20, but I guess we'll see what happens.
I'm at 35-20 right now, just non-binding. Do you have something in mind, Mark? I know you don't, you've got the Patreon, but just initially, do you have any thoughts?
I have had 38-28 in my head the entire off season. I think it's going to be a really good game. And I should, Steve, you went through the Wisconsin game at Soldier Field. I had this song and dance routine down last year because I explained this like 85 times. Wisconsin had a 13-10 lead with 14 minutes left in the game. Notre Dame, brought that kickoff back. So Notre Dame did not take the lead in the game until 14 minutes left in the game. It was the ensuing. They didn't take a 2-score lead in a 41-13 game. They didn't take a 2-score lead until there was 3 minutes left in the game. It was just, it just broke loose in the last 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So it was a really good game. Yep. Yeah, I just think I told the folks on Michigan podcast the other day, I said, after you go through your yawner against who is it, Colorado State, I think on opening day,
Mm-hmm.
that night, just watch the line of scrimmage and you can feel better about your chances 3 months later, or know that Ohio State's a little bit tougher this year, because I think Notre Dame can bring it on both sides of the ball up front, and it should be intriguing. Absolutely. All right, folks. I think we've pretty much wrapped it up for another week. I don't see anything else left here in the chat that we need to get to. We appreciate Tony being here. And of course, you can catch him and the rest of the crew for the rest of the day, or whatever that entails for the next several hours. I have dropped the link, and we'll do so one more time here, Buckeye Huddle on YouTube. And Steve, what do you have going?
I have got a lot of projects and a lot of irons in the fire right now, just kind of previewing the season, a lot of that type stuff. And I got some pretty good stuff coming up. Maybe looking back at 2002, the 20-year anniversary of that. They're going to have a reunion the day before the first game for those people, and that's kind of cool. And I don't know, just a lot of different things that I always do in the run up to the season. And it's amazing that they'll have actual games. A week from Saturday, we'll have actual college football. Northwestern and Nebraska is that next Saturday. And I saw Nebraska as a 15-point favorite over Northwestern. And the first thought in my mind was, should Nebraska be favored by 15 points over anybody after a 3-9 season? But I know how bad Northwestern was last year too. So although they did beat, didn't they knock off one of the division winners last year or something? Or I don't know. They beat somebody pretty good, I think, last year along the way. But any rate,
Nebraska beat them by 7 touchdowns last year.
Yeah, maybe that's why the spread's 15 points. But what I thought was interesting, not to get off on a tangent about that, was Fitzgerald in Indianapolis had this 10-pronged approach to how they're going to handle the travel going to Ireland to play that game. And then Scott Frost didn't seem to have the first idea. I guess we take an airplane over there. It was kind of he didn't say that, but that was kind of his. Didn't seem to have an idea of how they were going to approach it. Like, we're really starting the season in Ireland a week early, aren't we? So, yeah. But so maybe that's an indication. I don't know of which staff you want to lean with in that matchup. But any rate, football season is going to be upon us before we know it. We're covering all of it. We've got interviews tomorrow with the quarterbacks. CJ Stroud. I don't know if we'll get Devin Brown as a true freshman, but Kyle McCord and Corey Dennis, the quarterback's coach. And, we'll see what shakes out of that tomorrow. And, they named captains, some pretty good selections this past week, I thought. 3 guys on offense, Cade Stover, Cam Babb, CJ Stroud. 3 guys on defense, Court Williams, Tommy Eichenberg, and who am I missing, Tony?
Court Williams, Tommy Eichenberg, Tyler Friday.
Yeah, Tyler Friday. So an interesting group, because a couple, 2-3 of them may not even be starters, but Williams, Friday, and Babb probably won't start, but, going to probably play some in the 2 deep. And those are guys that have been pegged as spiritual leaders, it seems, for this team. So we'll see how it goes. And Babb was selected as the number 0 or the block O jersey recipient as the spiritual leader of the team. And, not to spill a secret here, but Tim May I guess he's with Letterman Row, put out there that he may have suffered some type of injury here in the last day or two, and waiting to hear word on exactly how severe that may be. And again, just hoping for the best with Cam Babb. So we'll see. Maybe tomorrow we'll get some insight about that.
I don't know. Nebraska's personnel is so much better than Northwestern's, but somebody's got to be the best and somebody's got to be the worst head coaches and maybe coaching staffs in the conference. And Pat Fitzgerald has a claim possibly as the best, and Scott Frost as it stands right now, I got to consider him the worst.
Yeah, I mean, based on what he's done in the Big Ten, I mean, he was great in the American. You know, this is the year of the Husker in my mind. I got him going 8-4. So, wait, when that's the year of the Husker, think about how proud that program was from the 60s through the early to the late 90s through 2001, really. And now 8-4 is considered an amazing season for them. 5 straight losing seasons, pretty amazing.
Northwestern's traditionally the most underrated football program / team in the country. They have never been ranked in the preseason under Pat Fitzgerald, and I believe he has brought them home to 5 top 25 finishes. I don't know. I don't think this is the year for them to bounce back either. But, man, if somebody told me right now the final score is going to be 17-13, I may think that that's Northwestern with the 17.
Yeah, we'll find out if this new Nebraska quarterback is all he's chalked up to be, and so be it.
To our case point here, do we know that Kyle McCord will be the number 2 for sure?
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he's not. He's been the number 2 when we've seen him, and no reason to think that he won't be this year.
Yeah, the 3 practices that we have been able to witness, he has consistently taken all of the reps with the 2s. He's always the second guy in. And with an extra year in the program, it certainly makes sense. And that's nothing to take away from Devin Brown. I was very impressed with what I saw out of him in the spring. And I don't think that that what it means today really matters in terms of 2023. But I guess I would say it's McCord as of right now.
And with CJ Stroud bringing up Heisman candidate here with Luke, I got to think if he throws up pretty much the same stats, but maybe reverses one of these game results against Oregon / Notre Dame, Michigan, and a game-winning drive / touchdown pass in one of those wouldn't hurt, in the last 20 seconds of the game, that's the formula.
And do voters want to give Bryce Young the Heisman again? They've been reticent to do that over the years to young winners, and so that can elevate somebody else as well. And I'm just telling you, I'm getting a lot of hearing a lot about Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back at Alabama. He might be stealing some of those Heisman votes from his quarterback.
Yeah, as Travion Henderson may be in Columbus. All right, guys. Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts 247 Sports. We always appreciate Steve posting these on Bucknuts. Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle. And again, get on over there. I just dropped it another time there in the chat. Immediately, boom, go right now. Join the conversation there on Buckeye Huddle. Guys, appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right, take care.